Welcome to this explainer. If you spend literally any time online these days, you've definitely seen clinical, psychological terms thrown around like casual insults. But today, we're going to dismantle those internet buzzwords and dive into a truly serious clinical understanding of these behavioral differences. We're stepping out of the shallow end to examine the deep, high-contrast shadows and hidden motivations that actually drive human behavior. Let's kick things off with this idea right here. An egoist prioritizes their own interests. A narcissist prioritizes their own image. This single, incredibly powerful sentence is the foundational insight for our entire explainer. Keep this stark contrast in mind because it explains almost every single behavioral difference we're going to explore today. It's really the key to understanding the people you work with, the people you date, and, well, maybe even yourself. So here's our addenda for today. 1. The misunderstood self. 2. Defining the egoist. 3. The narcissist's false self. 4. Reactions and relationships. 5. Origins and the spectrum. And finally, 6. The ultimate distinction.
Section 1. The misunderstood self. Beyond selfish.
Okay, so the big internet myth out there tells us that egoism and narcissism are just varying degrees of being selfish. It's like you're just turning up a volume dial on bad behavior, right? But surprisingly, the clinical reality reveals they arise from entirely different psychological motivations. Treating them interchangeably is a huge mistake because it completely ignores the crucial hidden drivers of human action. It's really not about how much they care about themselves, it's about why and how they actually do it.
Let's move to Section 2. Defining the egoist. The pursuit of benefit.
So, egoism. It's basically the belief that your own interests, your goals, and your well-being should be a primary concern. The fundamental question an egoist asks is simply, what benefits me? Now, please note that this self-interest doesn't automatically make someone a bad or cruel person. In fact, a lot of psychologists argue that healthy egoism is absolutely vital. Setting firm boundaries, aggressively pursuing your career goals, protecting your mental health, walking away from toxic relationships, those are all inherently egoistic actions. Without that healthy self-interest, you're just inviting exhaustion and some really deep resentment into your life. All right, Section 3. The narcissist's false self, the shield of superiority. Now, let's talk about narcissism. This is a personality trait characterized by grandiosity, excessive self-focus, an absolutely insatiable need for admiration, and a distinct lack of empathy. But what's truly fascinating here isn't the loud, grandiose exterior, it's the fragile, hidden reality it is desperately designed to cover up. Clinically speaking, narcissists are rarely actually in love with themselves. Psychoanalytic theorists point out that instead of just accepting normal human imperfection, the whole I'm flawed but valuable mindset, the narcissist builds what's known as the false self. Think of it as a constructed identity of just extraordinary superiority. It acts like heavy armor, a psychological defense mechanism created purely to protect against crippling feelings of weakness. They don't live as themselves. They basically live as a monument to themselves. Because underneath all that dominant exterior, it's just deep insecurity. We're talking incredibly fragile self-esteem and a frankly haunting fear of inadequacy and rejection. Because of these intense, profound insecurities, the narcissist requires what psychologists call narcissistic supply, meaning an endless pipeline of external praise, status, and recognition, just to stave off crushing shame and depression. They don't just want attention, they clinically require it to survive. Section 4. Reactions and relationships. The stress tests. Let's put these profiles through some real-world stress tests. First up, earning a promotion at work. An egoist gets promoted and thinks, great, this helps me achieve my goals. It pays more, it benefits my life. Notice how the egoist is satisfied completely privately by the tangible benefit. The narcissist, however, thinks, now everyone can see how superior I am. For the narcissist, the achievement itself is practically worthless in a vacuum. They literally require witnesses to validate their new identity. Second stress test, facing criticism. An egoist definitely finds criticism unpleasant, right? But they evaluate it logically. They might think, well, maybe they have a point. Does fixing this actually benefit me? But a narcissist, they experience criticism as a violent threat to their very identity. Psychologists actually call this explosive reaction a narcissistic injury. Because criticism punctures that protective false self we just talked about, the narcissist reacts with intense rage, blame-shifting, mockery, or even gaslighting just to neutralize the threat and restore their grandiosity. Our third stress test is romantic relationships. So, an egoist really values their independence, and they might be super career focused, but they can absolutely still form genuine, empathetic, emotional bonds with realistic human partners. A narcissist, on the other hand, frequently treats partners as mere status symbols or emotional suppliers. So, the absolutely crucial point here is that while an egoist can ask, how can we grow together? The narcissist fundamentally views their partner as a mirror whose only job is to reflect and support their grandiose self image. Seeing these really stark differences naturally leads us to ask kind of a big question. Can an egoist actually become a narcissist? Or, can someone be both at the same time? To answer that, let's jump to section 5, origins in the spectrum, where traits begin. The reality is, you can be highly egotistic without being narcissistic, and vice versa. And when it comes to narcissism, it is so vital to recognize that it isn't always loud. Sure, we have the grandiose narcissist, the arrogant, dominant figure saying, I'm better than everyone. But then we have the vulnerable narcissist. They're highly sensitive, defensive, and easily hurt, often playing the victim while secretly feeling totally superior. The vulnerable narcissist is often much harder to spot in daily adult life, but they suffer from the exact same pathological need for self-importance. And where does all this stem from? Well, look at these deeply rooted childhood factors. Genetics play a role, sure, but excessive praise, that teaches a child they are somehow special beyond all others. On the flip side, excessive criticism basically forces a child to create grandiosity as a psychological armor. And conditional love teaches them they are only valuable when they're actively being admired. These deep-seated origins prove that narcissistic behavior is not just a bad attitude. It is a complex, deeply ingrained survival mechanism forged really early in life.
Finally, section 6, the ultimate distinction, synthesizing the profiles. Let's break everything we've learned down into a sort of master cheat sheet to keep things straight. It perfectly contrasts the goal-oriented, totally practical reality of the egoist against the validation-starved, image-obsessed reality of the narcissist. The egoist can access genuine empathy. The narcissist's empathy is highly conditional. The egoist accepts imperfection to keep moving forward, while the narcissist must fiercely protect a grandiose identity from any perceived threat.
Listen, if you remember absolutely nothing else from our time together today, engrave this into your mind. An egoist wants advantages. A narcissist wants admiration. At the end of the day, the difference in motivation is everything. The egoist looks at the world and asks, how can I improve my life? The narcissist looks at the world and demands, how can I prove my importance? I'm going to leave you with this final, high-stakes thought to help you analyze your own interpersonal dynamics, whether that's at the office, in your friendships, or even in your own home. Knowing their hidden motives, who in your life is simply asking, what benefits me, and who is dangerously demanding, admit my superiority? The answer to that question changes absolutely everything about how you engage with them. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep questioning the psychology beneath the surface.